Hello, and welcome to this video presentation of the work that I have been doing while in artistic residence here in Viljandi, Estonia. There's a lot going on here, so I'll just take you through some of the parts and pieces as we work our way through it. Trigger Riot is also busy controlling other parts of the patch. One of the musically important parts of the patch that I originally created is based on an old Estonian historic instrument, cantal, and it's like a small zither or harp, and typically they'll be as small as only 5 strings. So a 5-string Estonian plucked musical instrument might be tuned to be D note, E note, F sharp note, G note, and an A note. So it's like the first 5 notes of a D major scale, or in a minor key, you just drop that F sharp note to get to an F note, and then you get a D, E, F, G, A note, so that you get a little first 5 notes of a D minor scale. And that's what I've done here. I'm using an IntelliGel quantizer to set that up, and I've got the option of having different scales set up that I can then step through in different ways, or even just change them on the fly as I go. And then that quantizer is being driven by a Turing machine algorithm running on a disting. And disting has quite a nice Turing machine algorithm in there. I've got it set so that I can make changes to its sequence pattern simply by pushing some voltage out of this Doppler antenna. So if I get close enough to the antenna, then the Doppler module which has both a CV out and a gate out will shoot a high voltage from its gate out. That goes into an IntelliGel inverter. That low voltage goes into the disting and then makes changes to the shift register pattern that's then driving the quantizer, and then that signal is being triggered by the Trigger Riot, and it controls a tall dog's, basically it's a miniature version of braids in here, and I'm running a plucked sound on it, and we can hear what that sounds like. So that plucked sound then heads off into one of my favorite little Doppler mini filters, A121, in the miniature 4HP version, and then from there heads off back into our blue box mixer, and then it's got some EQ, some echo, and some reverb on it. I'm using this other antenna, the right side Doppler antenna, to send a voltage that opens that filter, just so that it kind of gets brighter and we can hear more of what the braids is doing. So I'll play a little bit more of that, and then as I go, I'll reseed the left side antenna. I'll bring my hand up there, and then I'll reseed my disting. So we'll hear the Turing machine changing as it plays through the 5 notes of the D minor scale into our plucked oscillator. And now I'll bring in a couple of the percussion parts, and I'll get all 3 of those going. Okay, so then I still have more voices because, like I said, there's lots going on in this little case. So then the next voice that I had set up was a bass voice. And the bass voice is the IntelliGel Shapeshifter oscillator, and it's a dual oscillator, so I'm running its oscillator B as my bass voice oscillator. Now it gets its pitches from the same quantization that my plucking sound or my little zither sound comes from. The difference is I'm using one of my favorite little Doepfer sample and hold. It's the dual sample and hold, and I'm using one side of it, the bottom side, to grab some of the pitches from the quantizer and then shoot them to that bass oscillator. And it grabs them based on rhythms that are being played from the trigger riot. So I'm just going to bring up my bass sound. We'll hear it doing its thing. So that's the bass sound. The oscillator B comes out of the IntelliGel Shapeshifter and then goes into one of my favorite filters, especially for bass sounds, the IntelliGel Polaris. I'm running it in 24 dB per octave low pass mode, and I'm running it pretty hot in there. So you can hear as I move closer once again to the right hand antenna, I'm changing the wave shape from a more square wave shape to a more saw wave shape. So I can change that wave shape as I go. And then the filter is also being modulated. It's hard to see, but hidden in under here is an IntelliGel Quadrax, which is the perfect kind of module for this sort of setup because it's 4 little envelopes, as you guys know, 4 little envelopes in one small space. And to make it smaller, I didn't bring the expander that gives you the gates and trigger outs from it. So I'm just running it as envelopes. So I'm triggering the envelope, and then that envelope controls the Polaris filter for my filter sweeps, but it also controls an A132-8. So it's one of these octal VCAs. So I'm running the exponential VCA as my end of signal chain for that bass sound as well. And I'm using that for a couple of the other sounds using that VCA. So it gives me kind of a whole voice. And then I'm running another disting in here that clamps down on the octave range of that bass so that it doesn't get too high. It'll flip down into a lower octave. Like I've shown in some of my other videos, I have a little sub patch that'll do that. But I also wanted to be able to get more variations out of the bass sound. So what I did is I'm using a passive Doepfer 4-way switch. That's a cool, very inexpensive little module that gives you 2 switches that you can use to switch across 4 inputs to 1 output or 1 input to 4 outputs. Being passive, it's bi-directional. So I've got different bass rhythms that I've derived from different parts of the trigger riot and from another little, I think it's an SSSR clock divider that I'm running here as well. So I'm just going to flip through some of those. And then with the drums, And then, of course, that bass line will change the pitches that it's playing as the disting Turing machine algorithm is reseeded and changes what it's sending to the quantizer. So to hear that, great, thank you so much for watching. I will update with some more information about my patch from Viljandi, Estonia. Special thanks to my Patreons. Please consider joining my Patreon to help me make more weird music as I travel around recording more albums. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again.